Blown, and this is the first episode here on conspiracy theories, and we're on the topic of double deal. Also, duplicity is another potential name I came up for this aspect of the narrative. Double speak, double dealing, double standard, double think, newspeak. Those are the two references from Orwell's 1984. Basically, this part of the discussion talks about how they speak out of both sides of their mouth, how the establishment, the intelligence agencies, the law enforcement agencies, the alphabet soup agencies in the U.S. like to be on both sides of a conflict, right? And we've seen that in history, how sometimes the elites will play on both sides of a major conflict to benefit from it. So this is kind of the do as I say, not as I do. There's an aspect of hypocrisy here in double dealing, but it goes beyond that. And this topic to double dealing relates to our next section. And let's take a look at that overview really quick. The next section, dictate, is also something that relates kind of, it's basically how are they shaping this narrative? How are they telling you what you can and can't say, and really kind of their direct influence, the oligarchy, the powers that be, their direct influence with regard to conspiracy theories and conspiracies. Okay, so let's take a look though. I mistimed my effect there. So, by the way, I gotta say, I gotta get used to this. This is my first episode, and nerves. I gotta admit, I'm all nerves right now, and I'm having fun. I hope you're having fun, but this is a really long talk, and anyway, I just wanna put a little bit of humanity into this discussion. But back on track. So duplicity, let's take a look at some examples here of what they're pushing. So here are a couple of articles from Sky News. And so one of them says, remarkable bravery. Anti-lockdown protesters return to same spot in Shanghai after being pepper sprayed by police. Wow, anti-lockdown protesters, remarkable bravery. Okay, so they're painting them in a completely positive light. But by contrast, in the UK, it looks like coronavirus conspiracy theorists clash with police at anti-lockdown protests. Ooh, okay, so we got, on one hand, coronavirus conspiracy theorists being hurled as an ad hominem against these people, and the people doing the same exact thing in a nation that is being targeted by the empire for, eventual toppling, regime change, not part of the empire, right? What's the word? Anyway, these people opposed to the Chinese government and their lockdown policies are being called remarkably brave. So look at the contrast there. So it goes beyond hypocrisy, though, in this. It's basically, again, them talking out of both sides of their mouth. They routinely peddle their own conspiracies while castigating any unapproved conspiracies. Like this is a great example here of their double standard. So Russia, basically, the pipeline was sabotaged, a pipeline carrying gas from Russia to Germany. It was sabotaged. And of course, Russia says that the Western Empire was responsible. The Western Empire, led by the U.S. and UK, Israel, are saying, no, it was definitely Russia that did this. But the Western press says that Russia pushes a conspiracy theory that it was the West that did it. But in all of their reporting talking about how Russia did it, they never say that that's a conspiracy theory. But there's no definitive proof, who did the sabotage. Although I think for me it's pretty obvious if you think about, the particulars of this case were Russia had leverage with the oil flowing through the pipelines. Now, ultimately, another pipeline was left intact, so it's kind of the point. Ignore that fact, but Russia has leverage with the oil flowing through the pipelines. It has leverage on Germany. Okay, they could have turned off the gas at any point. It's their infrastructure. Why would they destroy it? And you could say, well, it was to paint the U.S. in a bad light. Maybe, but A, they lose the leverage. B, they risk outing themselves if decisive evidence was found, and it was, the place where it was sabotaged was in a very, very kind of busy NATO-surrounded part of the water. The idea that Russia snuck in there, and there's, of course, reports of UK spy helicopters all around the area and the time surrounding it, and all kinds of stuff. But, the idea that Russia would risk that, outing themselves, while negatively losing leverage on Germany it's ludicrous that Russia would have anything to do with this. But that's the theory that they are pushing. That's their conspiracy, the mainstream conspiracy. So, insider reporting, Russia watchers and intelligence experts say the ruptures were probably a product of Russian operations. Again, a conspiracy theory. Former CIA Director John Brennan last Wednesday told CNN that Russia is the most likely suspect. Another former U.S. senior intelligence officer says Russia was executed by Russia. Okay, and then AP reporting Russians push baseless theory blaming U.S. for burst pipeline. Baseless conspiracy theory. Yep, there it is. They say in the first paragraph, Kremlin and Russia state media are aggressively pushing a baseless conspiracy theory blaming the U.S. for damage to natural gas pipelines. Of course, Caitlin Johnstone giving a clear look to this issue, writing, "It's only a conspiracy theory when it accuses the U.S. government." Still laughing at how frantically over-the-top AP went with its blaming the U.S. for sabotaging Russia pipelines is a baseless conspiracy theory article. And they even link the conspiracy theory that the U.S. had a hand in this sabotage. They linked it to followers of QAnon. Okay, yeah, they went really over the top with that. And there it is in their article. The suggestion that the U.S. caused the damage, AP writes, was circulating on online forums popular with American conservatives and followers of QAnon. They lump it together with conservatives as well, so putting a political spin on this geopolitical event. A conspiracy theory movement which asserts that Trump is fighting a battle against satanic child trafficking sect that controls world events. Wow, they put that in their article about the burst pipeline, which, by the way, one of the members of the English Parliament, the EU Parliament, tweeted "Thank you USA" after the pipeline was destroyed. I think he was a Polish member, married to Anne Applebaum of the Washington Post. So this well-connected guy says, "Oh, thank you USA for that." Oops, he wasn't supposed to tweet that, but he tweeted a picture of the burst pipeline and said, "Thank you USA." That was his tweet. He took it down since, but Biden famously said, "Hey, we're going to find a way to destroy that pipeline." He famously said that in an interview question. Like, how are you going to get rid of this pipeline if it's in German, oh, we'll find a way. So it's so obvious that the U.S. had to do it. But look how they carelessly, in this case, sling this narrative about conspiracy theory, this double standard. It's only a conspiracy theory when it's against us, but if we do it, well, it's not a conspiracy theory, it's a theory, and da-da-da. So the other aspect of this duplicity is what we see historically. Historically, we see the hold on, I lost my place here. Historically, we see of course, the false flags. Operation Northwoods was very revealing. So they do the bad thing. They become the bad guy to fight against, they want to fight against Cuba. Well, they create an act of terrorism to justify that. Every act of war, every war that we've had was created by some sort of false flag attack. Look at the incubator babies for the first Gulf War, and then weapons of mass destruction, and then proposed false flags to create a war with Cuba, Operation Northwoods. This is all freedom of information. We know that the government does this kind of thing. There's a conspiracy theory about Pearl Harbor, that it was basically allowed to happen to get us into the war. A lot of this kind of stuff fits along with the FBI's modus operandi with regard to the way that they create terrorists. They create terrorism, including creating means, motive, and opportunity for potential terrorists, and fighting terrorism by that way. It's a controversial program. Here's an article about it. Are we catching terrorists or creating them? And this guy, Trevor Aronson, analyzed more than 500 federal terrorism prosecutions over 10 years and found reason to question whether U.S. law enforcement is actually creating the very enemy we fear. So I don't want to argue whether it's a good idea to engage in this kind of program or not. The point here is that they're kind of on both sides, creating terrorism and fighting terrorism. Creating the justification by bad means for fighting, what they claim to be bad, creating terrorism to fight terrorism. Operation Northwoods, it would be a terrorist act that they would create. 9/11 is a conspiracy theory about this, a false flag. This is kind of a duplicity, being on both sides of something, right? That's the idea here. We see this pattern of duplicity in the U.S. government historically and to the present day. Also about this terror program, the FBI has, according to Aronson, quote, under the guise of engaging in counterterrorism since 9/11, built a network of more than 15,000 informants to infiltrate Muslim communities and terrorists and ferret out would-be terrorists. The Bureau then provides the means necessary for these would-be terrorists to move forward with a terrorist plot, in some cases even planting specific ideas for attacks. They provide the motive, means, and opportunity. Sometimes the motive. They help influence that anyway. It's kind of this they're kind of creating the thing that they're fighting against. So I want to say, let me back up. So to bring this into focus, this idea of double dealing, or, the elite, the power being on both sides. We know that the FBI and the CIA are focused against conspiracy theories and conspiracy theorists, even though that's what they're supposed to be, conspiracy theorists. They have openly, stigmatized the idea of people being engaged in conspiracy theorizing. So if they're on, let me back up. If they're on the agenda of fighting conspiracy theories, all that, how are they, in a likewise fashion, kind of creating that thing that they're fighting against, right? So let's look at this aspect of it. Exclusive. This is Newsweek. Inside the military's secret undercover army. All right. So what are they doing here? It says the newest and fastest growing group is the clandestine army that never leaves their keyboards, the so-called keyboard warriors. So it says that they do a lot of stuff. Even they engage in campaigns to influence and manipulate social media. So these are operatives inside chat rooms, comment threads. Everywhere you look online, there's something like 60,000 of these Pentagon keyboard warriors. Okay, we also have Israel has $1 million troll army. They're said to be active on like some 37 different platforms involved with the IDF. Here, there was a story a while back about an Obama staffer who he ended up being appointed to a pretty high government position, and he was found to have written something about wanting cognitive infiltration of 9/11 conspiracy groups. So it says here in a 2008 academic paper, President Obama's appointee to the head of the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs advocated cognitive infiltration of groups that advocate conspiracy theories like the ones surrounding 9/11. Of course, they probably did just that. They did it with COINTELPRO. They infiltrated a whole bunch of groups. They got in and created, kind of false personas. They played both sides. They infiltrated groups, pretended to be the thing that, as they fight against it. It's kind of this the way that they're attacking this, running their agenda. And it's a power-serving agenda. Of course, the domestic terrorism, saying that it's domestic terrorism. So look what they're doing with the other terrorists. They are creating motive, means, and opportunity to fight terror. And we're talking about terror that we've traditionally associated as being overseas after 9/11, Middle Eastern, in all our wars in the Middle East. But now they're bringing that to the homeland, okay? And what are they doing to kind of potentially create conspiracy theories or influence conspiracy theories from the inside? Cognitive infiltration. So there's also the British 77th Brigade that engages in this kind of counterintelligence, info warfare type of engagements. The IDF, as I mentioned, these 60,000 Pentagon keyboard warriors, et cetera, et cetera. The theory here that I'd like to end with for this section on double dealing, duplicity, double standards, et cetera, is this idea that maybe a lot of conspiracy theories are the product of intelligence agencies. It's my theory, and I don't want to really focus on any specific conspiracy theory, but let me just throw this out there. I think that QAnon was a psyop created by the intelligence agencies to kind of give conspiracy theory in general a bad name. If you ever look into it, it's a total mind fuck. I mean, I get turned off by it really quickly with all this, this cryptic bullshit that constantly winds its way in these forum threads and never leads to anything. This and that's going to happen. At this point in history, we can look back and say, well, yeah, it was probably a psyop because all of its predictions were, never came true. But what are these people doing? What are these 60,000 people doing? It says directly in the article, they engage in influencing social media platforms, right there. So another example, I think, is the flat earth theory. the ridiculous. There's QAnon. Yeah, I think that's a bit of. Now I think that QAnon is a very broad thing. It kind of they lump it together with kind of other individual conspiracies. And by the way, each conspiracy theory can be an amalgamation of hundreds, thousands of smaller conspiracies. So it's you can't really lump these things. Pizzagate, for instance, there's a lot to that, and it's usually dropped as a one-liner kind of straw man whenever they talk about it. But that's kind of been lumped into this. And there are other conspiracies that are kind of lumped into it. But anyway, the flat Earth theory I want to talk about. All of a sudden here, one of the craziest conspiracy theories known to man just spiked in popularity. And when was that? Right around when everything went crazy. Around, you see, March 1st, 2015 is marked there on the timeline, and that's when we get that first spike. This is the Google Trends of flat Earth, the search term. Look at the spikes right around the time that Trump took office, and we get all of these conspiracies going on. And the craziest one of them all, in my estimation, the flat Earth conspiracy. Here it's seemingly exploding. Now they're going to say, well, in times of social unrest and uncertainty, that's when conspiracy theories blossom. In this regard, you have to ask, well, did rationality, decide to, walk out the door in 2016? Did humans all of a sudden, somehow lose the ability to be rational and scientific? I suspect that, this one could be a psyop as well. I think this is unnatural how that spiked right around the time that we got a, conspiracy candidate, as some people have dubbed him, Donald Trump. Anyway, it's suspicious. It's suspicious. But take that with a grain of salt. Take it for what you will. It's all right to speculate here. That's what we're doing with that, speculating. Perfectly normal and legitimate to look into that. We should have research and investigation into what exactly these keyboard warriors are doing. We need examples. We need transparency for this. We need transparency is a solution against conspiracy theories, not stigmatizing conspiracy theorists and potentially going to war with them like you went to war with terrorists overseas. I mean, that's crazy. That's crazy. Look where this is leading. Look where this is leading. And look how insane this narrative is. So I'm going to leave it at that, and we're going to move on to the next section.